Should we get on to talking about how the money's split?
Go on.
Right. So this is complicated, and I'm going to try and make it as straightforward as possible. Money from the playoffs is generated in a number of different ways, one of which obviously is the TV revenues. This is part of the EFL's TV deal, and it's one of the main driving forces in the TV deal. If you were to ask the TV companies, Sky, but particularly the foreign broadcasters, what are you paying for? One of the biggest matches they're playing for is the Championship playoff final. That is a match that is watched all over the world, generates enormous revenues. It's a huge match, the most valuable match in football. I'm not sure if it is anymore, but let's just say the most valuable match in football, etc. And then the other playoff matches, as you said, drag in all sorts of fans, who wouldn't normally necessarily follow lower league football, but they will watch the playoffs. Like you, I'm also following Wimbledon for the same reason that you are during the playoff season. However, none of that money from the TV goes to the clubs who are participating. None of it. That is all part of the general EFL pool that gets distributed to all clubs on the pre-agreed formula, etc. Then let's go on to ticketing, right? So this is the money that's generated from the ticket revenue. And of course, it's not included as part of the season ticket. So it's all fresh ticketing revenue, right? And inevitably, all the stadiums are full for the playoff semi-finals, right? 50% of the ticketing revenues goes to the four clubs that participate. That's from the semi-final revenue, right? So the playoff semi-finals, four clubs, and they get 50% of the collective ticketing revenue, with the other 50% going to the Football League for distribution to all the other clubs in the league, right? So I've just played this through with regards to the League One playoffs, which are happening yesterday and today, so it's topical, which are Orient, Stockport, Wycombe and Charlton. Those are the four clubs participating. Three of those clubs have stadiums with capacities of 10,000, Orient, Stockport and Wycombe. And one of the clubs has a capacity of close to 30,000, that's Charlton. Roughly speaking, the ticketing revenue generated will be 250,000 from Orient, 250,000 from Stockport, 200,000 from Wycombe, which is a bit under 10,000, and 600,000 from Charlton. Right. Well, whoopie-doo, well done, Charlton. You've got so much more money than everybody else. No, you don't. It all goes into a pool, which is £1.3 million. The expense of operating those games, which is four matches, right, two legs, two semi-finals, gets taken out of that £1.3 million, right? So, I mean, I'm going to keep the numbers round, probably a bit more than this actually, but let's just say it's £300,000 to operate those matches, right? So that would take the £1.3 million down, and also the travelling expenses of the away teams, that all gets taken out as well. So that gets taken down to £1 million, which means that each team receives 250,000 each, regardless of who wins, regardless of how many fans each club has or how big their stadiums are and all that type of stuff. It's 250 grand each. And then the remainder. Sorry, have I got that right?
No, because you said half of it
yeah, it's
goes
half.
into a
Sorry,
pool.
exactly. So sorry. So it's actually 100. So that is £125,000 per club, and the remainder goes into the general EFL pool. So the actual amount of ticketing revenue being received by those semi-finalists is quite minimal. Charlton, for instance, are putting on a match that generates £600,000 of revenue, and they're receiving £125,000 post costs for that, right? Then you get to the final. So much more ticketing revenue is generated, it being at Wembley. So I'm going to imagine that, if Charlton were to be one of the two clubs who do get through to the final, then the crowd will be at least 70,000. Might be a bit lower than that if Charlton aren't in the final, but anyway, let's say 70,000 will generate around about £2 million of revenue at Wembley. Take out a bit more actually, but let's keep the numbers round. Take out the operating expenses, takes down to 1.7 million, which ultimately then also gets shared. That 1.7 million also gets shared by the between 50% to the clubs participating, 50% to the league. So, around about 800,000 will go into the general pool, and 800,000 will go to the two clubs. So each club will get about 400,000 each. Again, no TV revenue, very important to say. So at this point, if you've got through to the final, you've got got £120,000, £125,000 from the first, 400,000. So you've basically got £500,000 worth of ticketing revenue. You've then got obviously significant merchandise sales. It'll be the best day ever for your club shop, or best week, I should say, or best 2 weeks for your club shop. You'll shift all the old stock, etc. You do get to keep hospitality revenues from your home leg, right? So the extra food and beverage and all that type of stuff. And you'll do extra commercial deals, one-off deals for the playoff semi-final and all types of different things. So you might get, let's say, an extra couple of £100,000 in from all of that. So now you're up to £700,000. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you've got £700,000 from having got through to the playoff final. But here's the problem. All of your manager and all of your players have got promotion bonuses. So if you win, you end up actually losing money.
Seriously?
Pretty much.
The bonuses would be more than the 700 grand.
Pretty much. I mean, it depends very much from contract to contract. But I mean, generally speaking, the manager will be on a bonus for promotion, which is roughly equivalent to how much he earns in any cases. So let's say the manager's on £250,000 a year. The manager will be on a £250,000 bonus to get you promotion, something like that. The players will be a variety of different things depending on, how the contract negotiations went. But on average, it'll be 30, 40, £50,000 per player, etc. So very quickly you find that actually you've got nothing left. So it's the one consolation of being the losing finalist in the playoffs is that you get to collect your 750 grand without having to pay out your bonuses. And I remember when this happened to us at Sunderland, the first time we got to the playoff final and infamously lost to Charlton for the last kick of the game, because it was a full stadium and because Sunderland had been in the playoff semi-finals, which had generated more revenue because the Stadium of Light's obviously a big stadium, etc., we actually pretty much made £1 million from our losing run to the playoff final, which I wouldn't say it softened the blow, but it was a minor mitigating circumstance, what was otherwise a day of disaster, etc. So that's about the size of things, shape of things. Obviously, it'll be a bit different in the Championship, where the playoff semi-final stadiums will be bigger and the crowd at Wembley will definitely be 80,000 plus, etc., etc. But it won't be significantly different, and the bonuses will be a lot bigger. The difference is, of course, in the Championship playoff finals is that when you get up to the Premier League, you get your TV check for £100 million, which means your bonuses might seem relatively modest in comparison.